Hi. I'm Jim. We've been hanging out long enough, you've probably worked that out by now.
Hi.
Okay, so normally when I do this, I stand up here and I do questions and answers because it's easier than just talking. And I don't really have a stand-up routine, so, but for it to work, someone has to ask a question. So, okay, good, we have some questions. We've got like a microphone right here, which we can use if you want to use. Okay, please, step up to the mic.
Thank you for coming to MalCon.
Oh, you're welcome.
So for your audiobooks, James Marsters did a fantastic job. I was wondering if you had any input on his characterization, or if it's all him.
My input was mostly along the lines of them saying, we want to have Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer read your books. And my input was me doing a Snoopy dance. Thus ends my input. Actually, the biggest thing they do is they call me before each recording with a list of words and ask me how to pronounce them. And then I have to go through phonetically and confirm this is how you pronounce each word, which works out wonderfully when I put words in that I don't know how to pronounce. So when James gets things wrong, I think before book 7 or 8, it's his fault, and after that, it's my fault. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Please, just come on up to the mic, and we'll go down the line.
So are you thinking of like revisiting the Codex Alera, like that world at all?
I can. There's some good places to go back, and I'm sorry I don't respect you guys enough to skip having caffeine here. It's necessary. I can go back to that world, and there'd be some good places to go back and tell stories. Plus, I mean, come on, it's the humans versus the Zerg, and I can always have the Protoss show up. But I don't have any plans to do it at the moment. There's nothing concrete on the drawing board. I can, and maybe one day I'll need to pay off my gambling debts or something. It would be nice to have that, that established series already there. But for the moment, no, not so far. Yes, sir.
The name of the upcoming book, next Harry book, is Peace Talks.
Mm-hmm.
Back in White Knights, Lara told Harry that she will destroy him with peace. Are they related?
You can't really think I'm gonna answer.
I thought it might be general enough you could say maybe.
Why would I do that? I just ruin your fun. I'll say Lara's in the next book and leave it at that.
Okay.
Okay.
Aeronauts Windless I loved a lot, and it seemed like you put a lot of detail into the ships and into the ship battles. Did you do a lot of research for that?
Sort of. I watched Master and Commander a lot. I enjoy that kind of book. My favorite of the Trek movies is Trek 2 because it gets very hornblower in Trek 2 in the ship-to-ship battle. And it's the hornbloweriest of the Trek stories I think that we've seen so far. But yeah, I mean, Horatio Hornblower is a favorite character of mine. And then you get on to Captain Aubrey. You follow up with that, and David Weber's Honor Harrington books have been a great deal of fun. And it's like, I want to do nautical combat, but I can't do it on an ocean because you have to learn too much about it. It's really specific on the ocean. Like absolutely everything on a ship has its own names, and there's a phenomenal amount of learning to get it done. It is a universe unto itself. That only one that actually existed. So I didn't want to go quite that deep. I just wanted broadsides and cool drama and sword fights. So I say, well, let's do it on airships, and then I can mix in some fighter plane stuff too. Some World War II fighter plane stuff, which is to say Star Wars dogfighting. So that was a lot of fun, and I had a great time doing it.
Again, thanks for coming. Have you had characters who have ended up very different to how you originally planned them? Can you give us some examples if that's so?
Not a whole lot, because when I build a character, they've got a purpose, and so normally I build them to do something, and that's what I get out of them, because they've been constructed from the ground floor to do that. There are a few characters that have exceeded that purpose outrageously. The most notable one being Waldo Butters. Butters was the guy that I just needed to lighten up this really, really hideous medical examiner examining corpse scene. So it was an autopsy scene, and I'm reading through it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. I've got pieces I've got people cubed and pieces of flesh just kind of pattering to the ground. This is awful. I need to lighten this up. And so I stole the medical examiner from the Prophecy. Only in the Prophecy he was a ginger. So I said, okay, well I gotta make him somebody else instead. And I said, okay, if Weird Al Yankovic was a medical examiner, that's who I'm gonna write right now. And then he was just a one-off bit character. And then the next book, a couple books later, I'm writing, and my editor comes to me and says, what's your plan for the next book? And originally I just got done with Blood Rights, and I was going to write Proven Guilty next. And I said, oh, this one's going to be a little bit quieter, and it's going to be a little bit more personally focused on this side character Molly that we've seen before. And the editor's like, maybe it's not the best timing for that story. Maybe you want a story that's a little bit bigger, that's a little bit heavier, that's a little bit, kind of a little bit more rigid. And I'm like, wait, are you telling me I'm going paperback? She's like, I didn't say that. You didn't hear that from me. I'm just giving you some advice that I think you should listen to. And you're going hardback. And they're like, so that was going to be the first hardback book. So I was like, okay, well, I've got to do the Necromancers. I've got to do the Zombie T-Rex. I need a sidekick for Harry. Who's the perfect sidekick for Harry? Because this is going to be a really dark one, so it needs to be a sidekick that can't really help too much yet. Is thematically appropriate. And I'm like, the wee medical examiner. That's perfect. The corpse guy can help him against the Necromancers and be no good at all. But then, as I started writing the character, I realized, oh wait, I'm going to have to do some more stuff with him. And so I started planting seeds for the future. And so he got repurposed, which is a fine thing to do with characters, I guess, rather than just throwing them away.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Speaking of characters, I was wondering, you left Cat Sith's fate sort of ambiguous. So was that intentional, or?
Cat Sith's fate?
Yeah.
What? Obviously, he off the ship into the freezing water.
Well, I mean, that's what happened to Harry, and Harry was fine.
What's your point?
I don't know, I was just wondering if Mab kidnapped him or something.
You're just trying to get more information out of me that I haven't given you yet. I see through your charade, sir. I'm not going to tell you the answer to that.
Hello.
Hello.
I was wondering if you could give us any information on the next Cinder Spires book, like anything at all.
The next Cinder Spires book is called The Olympian Affair. It's the two spires have begun the opening stages of a war. Nobody's eager to commit all their forces yet. They're still trying to figure out who they can recruit to their team to help them. And the next book is going to be concerned with, especially with figuring out where Spire Olympia is going to come down on the side of the war. And so we're going to be going off to Spire Olympia. It's a diplomatic mission and will be peaceful.
That always works.
Because, they always are. But we'll get to see a little bit more. We might get to go to the surface a little bit in this one. And just sort of generally speaking, we'll get to see more of the world, which is much bigger than Spire Albion. Spire Albion is very much the vanilla part of the world, and so now I get to start doing some more, because you can't just start off in the wackiest part of the world. You've got to start off with the touchstone, and so we've started off there, and now we get to start doing progressively more fun stuff, which is to say, stuff the characters will not like. So,
Thank you.
very welcome.
I was wondering what version of D&D is your preferred, and is there a difference between being a DM and a player?
My preferred version of D&D is Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. That said, every version of D&D, except D&D 4, has its own charm and its own strengths to it that in its own kind of fun. D&D 4 also had its own kind of fun. It just wasn't the kind of fun that I enjoyed. But I enjoy Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I enjoy the fact that I think there's a little bit more personality written into the rules. There are skills for characters called like flee with an exclamation point. So it's not just flee, it's flee, and things like that. I think it gives players a little bit more flexibility as to what they want to do with their characters and where they want to go. I like the world setting and how integrated it is with all the rules. You can run D&D on any kind of world, but I really enjoy Warhammer. The difference between GMing for me and playing is that I get bored with characters after 2 weeks and have to switch to a new one because this character's boring. I've already done everything. I'm tired of that. As a DM. My focus on, don't you come over and ask questions. All right, we're going to take lots of time for the rest of you so that Kitty doesn't get a chance. As a DM, I find that my writing has made my DMing worse. So a lot of times I will do my best to cliffhang the ends of sessions. I'll do things that are specifically designed to torment characters and give them a hard time. So I do everything I can to troll my players that way, on the psychological level. It's just a question, and I usually have great success in doing so unless my son is playing, because his counter troll game is strong. But anyway, so there you go.
Thank you.
Hi, at what point did Ebenezer find out Harry existed, and does Ebenezer know Thomas is his grandson?
First part of the question, not until it was too late. Not until after Justin. It wasn't until after Justin's death that he was able to find out. As far as Thomas, stay tuned.
Hey. Hi, Jim. You spilt a little bit of pen ink on me last year. It was awesome.
You're welcome.
So my question for you is, a lot of the gods like Mab and Titania, it's implied that they used to be humans who achieved something through a Dark Hallow. They're mortal identities. Are these people that are mortals either in fiction or in fact that we actually would know who they are?
Some of them you would know who they are. Because some of them are historical people that have done things. Not all of them, because a lot of times the people who really get things done are not the people who show up, whose names you know. It's like some of the most critical events in the world. The guys who recovered the Enigma machine in World War II. Do you know their names offhand? I mean, you know Winston Churchill, you know Eisenhower, names like that, Patton's name, but the guys that turned the course of the war for the entire planet, they're not as well known. You could probably go find it out, but they're not the names that are on everybody's lips and in every textbook. And it's the same thing with with supernatural history, the way I write it as well. Some of the people are famous, some of them not so much. But yeah, and not all of them were human at one time. Mab and Titania were, but not everyone.
Thank you.
So yeah, sure. Hey.
Hello. Within each of your novel series, writers put something of themselves in a lot of characters, but they're all your children, and you've had a way of bringing them to where they are. But which of the characters have you put the most of yourself into? Which would you consider, if you were to cast yourself in these universes, which one, in each one, which character would you be?
Oh God. If I was okay, that's not even a fair question because it isn't even. Because if I was going to cast myself, I'd be a White Court vampire. That'd be fun. But I mean, as far as the characters that are most like me, I don't know. I just write these people. I don't. That's a deep question. I don't get into that, which is something that. That's well reflected in Dresden. He doesn't do that introspection thing a lot.
Yeah, you have nothing in common with that guy.
Shut up. Just shut up. I don't know. I don't really think of them like that. I try and build them and make them their own people. They're a lot like me because I can't help that on account of I'm the only person I know how to be. So. You know, I just do my best to envision. I think the characters who are most like me are probably it's a lot of the little ones on the side. You know, I like Lamar, the emergency medical tech, who knows that weird things are happening in Chicago, and he's showed up in a couple of books now and wants nothing to do with any of it. He's like, oh, this is weird stuff. Nope, I'm out of here. And that's me right there. That guy, he's me.
Thank you.
Sure.
So we talk a lot about humans, but I actually have a question about our favorite canine.
Okay.
So where did you get the idea for Mouse, and why did you bring him in as such a major part of the story?
Okay. In the first place, the reason to give Harry some kind of guardian was that his world was getting progressively more dangerous, and I wanted it to be believable that he could survive the rest of the year when he wasn't on screen. So I wanted him to have this protector figure. The second reason was because we got a dog, and it had been a long time since I'd had a dog in the family, and I had forgotten how awesome it was. And Mouse is the dog that my dog, who I lost last year, is the dog that my dog thought he was. Now my dog was a Bichon Frise. He was about this big. But he was convinced that he was a mighty warrior protector spirit. And to his credit, he saved my kid from a bear when he was a puppy. He fought a coyote when he was 13 years old and broke a tooth off on it and got away. Yeah, the dog was all but blind and deaf, and I can only assume that out there somewhere there's a coyote limping going, that bunny was completely unreasonable. But that's where Mouse came from, and you know, basically because I had my dog was my patron writing spirit. So whenever I was writing, whenever I'd be writing, I'd be stretched out on the couch with the laptop, and the dog would be right there between my ankles. That was his job, and so I wrote my dog into that, and that was the dog that my dog thought he was. I never had the heart to tell him that he was a little French dog. I mean, I just didn't. He was pretty sure. I was pretty sure he was convinced he was a Rottweiler, and he just stayed that way. But he was able to pass on some of his dogging to my sister's dog. She got a Bichon Frise named Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is afraid of the dark. But my dog would boldly go right out into the backyard, into the darkness where who knows what was, and so Buffy would eventually learn, oh, okay, that's all right, we can do that. And so he passed on his dog awesomeness to several other dogs, you know, so we're doing well.
Thank you.
No. All right, you.
All right. So I have a two-part question about Mirror Mirror.
Okay.
So is alternate universe Harry going to be like Pepsi, McDonald's,
oh my God,
hockey stick, Jeep?
Okay.
And obviously the hat. Well, I mean the hat's canon anyway.
Thank you, everyone. Panel's over.
Hey, that's only the first part.
Okay. All right, you did say it was a two-part question. Please ask.
Are we going to get to see Susan wielding Amarachius again?
Oh my gosh, that is such an inside joke. Go away. For you guys that don't know, the book after Peace Talks is titled Mirror Mirror, and it's going to be much because I'm going to be writing an alternate universe with eye patches and goatees and everything, and how can I not call it Mirror Mirror? And it's kind of the general idea of that story, and so we're going to see a lot of alternate stuff. We'll will evil Harry drink Pepsi? Oh my God. Why do you do this to me? That's because you love me. Okay, good answer. Why is it all this stuff? Is because you love me. That drives me insane. Cats everywhere. Okay.
Well, she did have the Susan Amarakis question too.
Yes. And we're not going to touch that as there are underage people in this room. The inside joke on that one is just disturbing.
All right, so the question I actually had was, so you put your characters through these absolutely torturous situations, and it takes a really, like, George R. R. Martin kind of twisted kind of mind, I think, to really do these things to your characters that we love.
Hey now. All right, but please continue your question.
All right, so the question was then, how do you reconcile doing that to those characters with the fact that you are actually a nice guy?
I get no respect. Look, I'm not actually a nice guy, is the answer. I play one at conventions. You see, the thing is that's what nobody understands, is that it's not that I enjoy torturing the characters, it's that I enjoy torturing all of you. But if I do it in real life, they'll lock me away. So this is the best I can manage, is I torture you guys in effigy. But yeah, okay, I'm just going to say right now, for anybody who wants to be a writer, you don't have to be a sadist to be a writer. I mean, it's not required, but
It helps.
it helps a lot. Or at least, you know, an evangelical masochist, you know, so one of the two.
So at the end of Proven Guilty, when Molly became Harry's apprentice, she was under the Doom of Damocles. She's now the Winter Lady. Is she still under the Doom of Damocles?
Yeah, I'd like to see the White Council trying to pull that. I'd like to see Mab's poker face on that one. You see, the thing is the White Council, they've got all kinds of power, and they really do it. They can do all kinds of things in the world, but at the end of the day, nobody wants to be the one to walk up to Mab and say, there's this little legal matter we need to clear up. Because, you know, nobody wants to be the one to cross Mab. They know she's dangerous. And not only that, but she's older than all the White Council, which is essentially, it's a gerontocracy. I mean, the older you get it, the more powerful you get as a wizard. And they all know that she's been around longer than any of them. And so nobody wants to be the one to say, well, you know, I've been cruising along for 340 years here, and maybe I'll just try my luck against Mab. There isn't a wizard who thinks like that.
Except Harry.
Well, yeah, Harry's stupid. He has not got a rational perspective on the universe, and that's just a fact. But
you've opened up the Dresden world for an RPG. Is there any thought of opening Codex Alera for one as well?
yeah, I'd be fine with that. I mean, you know, I'm happy to if people want to go play there. If you just want to write your Codex Alera game and play it there, please do. You know, have fun. That's kind of the whole point, the whole books of the whole project is, yeah, have fun. That's what we're doing.
Can you give some insights into when you're going to kill a character off? Do you make characters specifically knowing that I need someone to kill off at this point and introduce them early on, or does the story set something up and you realize it would make a lot of sense if this character died? What's your process for that?
Yes. Yeah, there are characters that I've set up for the very beginning that it is not their fate to survive the story. There are characters occasionally that come along that I go, you know what? Yeah, it's your time. Look at this situation I've written. Yeah, I didn't plan it either, but there it is. You're out of here.
Are there characters that survived their original fate of getting killed off?
Yeah, Butters did. Yeah, yeah. I was going to have Butters die horribly at one point, but as it was, you know, it's like, you know what? I can find other use for you.
I can kill you later.
Polka will never die. Not yet. You're welcome. See, like I said, I want to torture all of you. Next.
So, in regards to Molly and the process that she's been going through of kind of growing up and such, and now she's she's the Winter Lady. And I'm kind of interested in the idea, it's kind of twofold. How long has it been since a mortal has become that level of a fairy? And what kinds of repercussions or changes do you think that we're going to see?
Well, it's been a while since it was a pure mortal. I mean, technically, Maeve and Sarissa were pure mortals and only influenced by the mantle. So they were first generation half fae. But as far as Molly being pure mortal, is she really anymore? Is sort of the question, and sort of what we're dealing with. I don't know if you've read her short story yet. I'm not sure. Is it not out yet? Oh, okay. Well, you should read that, definitely. It's called Cold Case, and it's Molly, essentially Molly off on her first mission as Winter Lady, where she finds out what the Winter Lady does and what her purpose in the cosmos is, essentially. And Molly gets to find out the hard way. Because that's how I do it to everybody. But and that's the Molly Ramirez team up short story. So
where do we get a copy of that?
That is in an anthology. I think it's in Sean Speakman's Unfettered 2, maybe, or Unbound, unsomethinged. Help.
Looking it up now.
Okay.
Thanks.
We'll have an answer for you shortly.
Internet's slow here.
Okay.
So, wizards and technology, they don't get along very well.
Correct.
Have you destroyed many computers? Or
Man, I burn out a laptop in 9 to 10 months. Is about how long the average laptop lasts me. And that's not playing video games on it. That's just working, browsing, researching. But I've got big dumb thick fingers, and so when I type, I don't type like I type like that. So I start wearing the keys out, and then it starts overheating because it's always like on my lap, on a couch somewhere, and just sort of generally speaking, I go through those things fast. I'm really terrible with any kind of machinery that requires regular maintenance. So I'm trying to get better about that because it seems like the adult thing to do. But I have destroyed so many lawnmowers just by not really noticing that chain in the yard. That kind of thing. Me and machinery have not been bestest of friends. I had a chainsaw for a while. That was, I survived that. And now I use axes because they're much more reliable.
Shadowed Souls.
What's that?
Shadowed Souls.
Shadowed Souls. That's right. That's the one that I did. Okay. I thought it was the Butter story in that one. The Butter story went to Sean. That's the Shadowed Souls anthology. It's about mixed people who are the general idea is to have it be about people who are essentially not really pure heroes anymore. So that's why I put Molly in there. And that will be out later, November 1st. So you can see Molly on her first mission as Winter Lady and see what her job is. And I wasn't quite entirely sure what her job was until I got done writing it, and then I was like, oh, golly, I am a sadist. So.
Hello again. Going back to that question about Molly and the Doom of Damocles, what was the Winter's Council's reaction when they found out that Harry, their black sheep, and then his apprentice were now like the two most powerful people in the Winter Court?
Oh, and not only that, he's also in charge of the damned island full of monsters. He's also taken over Monster Island. What do you think their reaction is? You look at Harry from the exterior, oh my gosh, he's the new Dark Lord. That's the new Voldemort. He is on the way. You know, and not only that, but he's secured his position with Mab now, so you can't cross him without crossing Mab as well. You know, not only that, but yeah, his apprentice is even more highly placed than that. So he's trained the next person up the line from him in the chain of command over in Winter. Not only that, but he's obviously got some kind of relationship with the new Summer Lady, and also the current Summer Knight. He's forming this group of people who share information over this internet that wizards can't access. So he's got this spy network forming. Are you kidding?
So
he's the
crapping
most
their
dangerous man on the planet.
So they're crapping their pants.
Yeah, exactly. It's not as much that as much as, okay, yeah, we're going to have to bump him up with the threat, bump him up again, bump him up. It doesn't go any higher? Okay, all right, we're going to have to start taking action on this one. So.
Is he still part of the White Council?
Technically. Technically, because the White Council subscribes to the keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer theory of things. So yeah, and Harry doesn't really realize any of that because he's just stumbling along through his life doing stuff. But yeah, anybody who's looking at it from the outside, are you kidding? They've got to be flipping out right now.
Hi, there are a couple of things from way back that I'm wondering if we'll ever see again. Like, for instance, mention of the Jade Court of vampires, or in the very first story, the little girl Faith Aster should be in her 20s by now. Are we ever going to see her, maybe?
Yes. I wrote her to be the femme fatale that walks in to kick off the big apocalyptic trilogy at the end.
I had a strange. I liked her.
I'm lazy, man. I don't like to write things I'm not going to use later. I don't know how much Jade Court will see because they're written to be this extreme isolationist faction, by which I mean they like staying isolated. So the Jade Court, you know, they remain mostly in the Yangtze River Valley in China. They don't even call it China because they're not sure if this whole China thing is going to work out yet. As far as they're concerned, it's still Chin. Yeah, I mean, this whole unified kingdoms thing, maybe it was a good idea. You know, there hasn't been long enough time to tell. 4,000 years. But we might see some of their agents later on, but probably not them themselves. They're busy being celestial over where they are. So.
Thank you.
When are you planning to have Michael and Charity find out about Molly?
That has to happen on stage, because I mean, it would be so much easier if she came out as lesbian than what she's going to have to do, and she's been frantically hiding it. So yeah, that'll have to happen on stage. I'm not sure exactly when it'll happen, but I won't cheat you guys of that because that'll be too good. So awkward. You can be the mightiest fairy queen ever, but mom and dad are there. It's just humiliating.
So more of your life. What brought you to the University of Oklahoma?
A girl.
Oh,
mainly.
okay.
My ex Shannon was going to OU, and I thought that was a fine idea, being 18 at the time. And they were at that time they were buying National Merit Scholars. That's the only word for it. They were buying National Merit Scholars. If you went, you got a full ride and $2,000 a semester. Just throwing around money. So I showed up there and was in the honors dorm for a while, and because they were giving me lots of money, so that seemed like a much better idea than paying other people lots of money to go to school. Somebody would pay me, yeah, I'll do that. Thank goodness for standardized tests. I've always been good at those.
Boomer, thank you.
Boomer Sooner. That I could never get behind Boomer Sooner because of the football players. Actually, dealing with the football players on the campus they were the kind of guys who, when they would go into the bathroom, would stand like this, so they took up 3 urinals, and they didn't really think anything of it. That was just kind of who they were. But
Michael's kind of been an interesting perspective into the world, and I was just kind of wondering what your inspiration for him was.
For Michael?
Yeah.
I wanted to. My inspiration for Michael was reading the Sheep Farmer's Daughter series by Elizabeth Moon, which is that right, Elizabeth Moon? I think so. which is it's a series about a paladin, and it's one of the better paladin series I've ever read. And I'm like, you know what? I want to do a paladin. I want to do somebody who is righteous, not self-righteous. You know, someone who walks the walk instead of talking the talk. And so I wanted to drop Michael in as somebody who was very near a paragon of Christian and Catholic ideals, not of Christian and Catholic dogma. And that's where that character came from. You know, he's somebody I wanted to get somebody who was, you know, very close to being a really, really good human being. And I wanted him to be there, especially as a contrast to Dresden, because I knew that Dresden is always messing around in these murky areas, and I wanted somebody for whom that was not an issue. Going into the murk has never been an issue for Michael because he's a different person from where he stands and the way he looks at the universe. That is not what he's going to do. But he's also never going to be the guy that has to make the hard, horrible choices that Harry sometimes has to. You know, and the question is, you know, is he avoiding responsibility, or does his belief allow him to create other options that aren't hard and horrible choices? You know, how does that work? And I don't know. I wanted to write a story about it. Maybe I could figure something out. But yeah, I mean, Michael's the guy I wish I was. You know, I think he's the guy a lot of people wish they were.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So you mentioned in one of the books that Molly has like an 8-figure account in her bank account right now.
Yes.
Does Harry get paid for being the Winter Knight, or does that just not?
Are you kidding? No, he can go ask for things. Harry already did get paid for being the Winter Knight by being given a bunch of power. The She are hyper focused on obligation and keeping the sheets balanced, especially winter. Summer you can get a little bit more emotional and do some nice things and not hold anybody accountable for it. But in winter, everyone accounts for everything. So I mean, so sure, Harry they could pay Harry, but he would have to go live on and you know, he would have to be working shifts and doing things on their time and so on. As it is, you know, Mab's just made a deal. When I need you, you show up. You know, he's kind of a consultant now, and he's been paid in power. Plus, he reaps a bunch of side indirect benefits of being Mab's, you know, strong guy, such as the White Council not just obliterating him. You know, that would be declaring a war. Can't really do that. Damn it! We should have killed this guy when we had the chance. That's what a lot of people on the White Council are thinking. Even the people who kind of like him, you know what? Maybe we should have killed this guy when we had a chance. You know, they've seen too many bad wizards come along. You know, everybody who's worried about Harry is looking at him thinking, man, that's Kemmler again. And it's just a matter of time before he starts digging into bad things. You saw what he did with the dinosaur. So,
thank you.
but yeah. But yeah, they're not going to pay him. That'd be too easy for Harry. You know? Harry's the Charlie Brown of urban fantasy, man. He gets to open his treat bag after they get away and go, I got a rock.
So the Dresden Files Kickstarter finished a few months ago. I was wondering if you had a chance to play the game yet.
No, I have not. The cooperative card game, I guess I could maybe play that one. I can't play the role-playing game. I'm like the one person on the planet who cannot play the role-playing game.
Yeah, I mean the cooperative.
Yeah, I haven't got a chance to play it yet.
Okay.
I need to go. I need to find a convention that me and Fred are both at, so I can sit down with him and have him teach me to play. But yeah, but I can't play the role-playing game. I'm a power gaming weasel, so imagine trying to GM me at the Dresden Files role-playing game. You know, no, it is that way, and I'll write it that way in the next book if I have to. But at the same time, if I'm the GM, it's too much like work. So I got to torture more people.
Thank you.
Sure.
So
Hello.
Peter wants to know what you think about writing dystopian futures.
Dystopian futures. I think if you really want to write a dystopian future, try and write a utopian future, then you'll get a dystopian future. You may not realize it that you have. Dystopian futures, they're fun. Really, that's all about, we're human beings, how can we screw up a perfectly good future? because it's just a matter of how we're going to do it. It's not a question of when or if. I mean, things are getting better and we're doing pretty good overall, but we're people, and we're going to screw things up as we go along the way. So I guess we'll see what happens. As far as general dystopia goes, I can get behind it, because there's always going to be things that need to be righted, need to be fixed. I'm not somebody who believes that the Federation is going to happen. I mean, it sounds like a great idea, but I think we could get there and then find out what a terrible idea it was. It would come around to bite us later, just because that's the nature of people. Really, the best we can do is hopefully to leave each other alone a lot, and as long as we're not walking on each other's toes, and then we just kind of go do our own thing without, starting wars over it, then it should be okay. That seems to be a reasonable goal. You know what? Leave me alone. Yeah. Okay. That would work out.
So good, you're not going to put anybody into a big coliseum and make them battle.
Like I haven't done that already. I probably won't do it with children. Oh God, yes I will. Yeah, one of the projects that's gonna be sometime in the middle term future is gonna be the Maggie Dresden goes to school. She's going to go to St. Mark's Academy for the Gifted and Talented, which Harry's going to try and get him to rename Resourceful and Talented, and they won't. But it's where a bunch of the supernatural kids go to school, and the science of the area. And there's an unspoken rule in place that we let the kids sort things out themselves. We don't get involved in the kids' problems. So as long as nobody dies, the kids sort it out. And but what the grown-ups don't know is that there's this pantheon of monsters that can only interact with children and that you don't remember after you grow up. Because child culture is this thing that exists all by itself. I didn't really realize this until I had a kid of my own, and he came home from school singing one day, and I realized I had never taught him Jingle Bells, Batman Smells, Robin Laid an Egg. But that song, other kids had taught him that, and that song had been alive and stayed alive in school, over 20 years within this child culture that continues existing, that I didn't really remember or think much about after I grew up. I was busy with grown-up things. And I'm like, well, let's do that, but with monsters. And so we'll have Maggie Dresden going off to school with Mouse as her service dog, and we'll have some other characters as well. And but poor Maggie, she's really dysfunctional. She's the weird kid at school. At the school for supernatural weirdos, she's the weird kid. But she's gone through a lot, and she really does need the service dog. She's got a lot of social anxiety and anxiety issues that I want to have a character who does have these problems. Except when things are on fire and everybody's panicking and screaming, and then she's perfectly normal because she's Harry Dresden's daughter. So.
A little while ago you were talking about Michael being a paladin, and in one of the recent books you had Uriel bestow his power on him, and Uriel said, if you screw up with this, I will fall. Is that what happened to any of the Denarians?
To any of the Denarians? No. The Denarians were all either people who, they were either angels who sided with Lucifer, or they were angels who did not get off the fence, or did not get off the fence in a timely enough fashion. Lashiel was one of those angels who tried to play both sides off the middle, and it did not work out for her after the Angel War, which makes her more bitter because her schemes fell apart. She was pretty confident about those schemes. But yeah, the Denarians are all. They're all angels who either sided with Lucifer during the rebellion, or were sort of cast out after. There's this whole crew of angels who were like, well, you know what, you deserted from this combat, or you fled this battle, and you're gone as well. And they might not have got cast to the lake of fire, but they wound up in other places. Okay. So.
What was your inspiration for Bob? And was he always going to be into porn?
I turned in my first chapter, okay, to my writing teacher. She said, well, you did it. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, this will sell. This is a professional quality. You'll be able to sell this. I don't know if it'll be the first thing you sell, but it will sell. And that was one thing she said. She's like, so what's coming up next? And I'm like, well, I've got this thing set up where Harry's kind of the consultant to the police, and so the police will be the dummies that he has to explain things to, because there's always there's a concept in writing craft called the joy of idiocy, which is you always keep an idiot on board so that the idiot can ask questions and your character can answer the questions. And that way the reader doesn't have to feel like an idiot because somebody else is doing that for them, but you're getting the information to the reader in a way that's not just an information dump. So Murphy is the idiot when it comes to a lot of magical situations. So Harry goes to her and consults. But sometimes Harry's going to run into things that he doesn't know because he's a young wizard. So he's going to have this consultant figure that he goes to so that he can be the idiot and have things explained to him. And my teacher says, all right, well, that sounds like a good plan as long as you don't make him a talking head. So I came back a couple weeks later with the next chapters with Bob, the literal talking head, and she reads that and looks across the desk at me and says, "You think you're funny, don't you?"
I thought you said you were doing everything she told you to that time.
Yeah. But I'd been arguing with her for 3 years. I'm obstreperous, man. What can I tell you?
Speaking of anxiety issues, given the number of huge furballs that Harry's been in that rival Battle of Stalingrad and Battle of the Bulge together in 5 minutes, does he or will he ever suffer from PTSD?
Oh God, he suffers terribly from it. It's one of those things that he's just denying and blocking out. I mean, he's had bad things happen to him, but he's also somebody who's very focused on other people, so he keeps trying to soldier on, and that's not something you can do indefinitely. We'll get to that as well. But yeah, I mean, Dresden's got issues. He might have, as you Americans say, issues. So I mean, and that is stuff that he will have to confront eventually, because you can't get away from that. Eventually, you can't sustain it anymore.
Thank you.
All right. So you just said the fallen angels. They did follow Lucifer in this world too. So does Lucifer have his own coin, and will he make an appearance?
Oh no, Lucifer stuck in a coin? Are you kidding? No, he's the Prince of fucking Darkness. No, that doesn't happen. No, I mean he that was the deal. I mean, better to rule in hell than serve in heaven, and he does rule in hell. He's not stuck in somebody's coin. But we'll get to see him on stage later. So that's not to the big trilogy, but. Hey, he's freaking Satan. You can't go any worse. So.
Will we see Billy or Jenny Sells again?
Billy or Jenny Sells. Let me think, because they're back a ways.
Victor and Monica Sells' kids.
Oh yeah, those two. Oh God. Maybe that could well be. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'd forgotten them. They were on a page of notes somewhere. Now you've reminded me.
No, they're dead.
I'm gonna have to think about this.
They're evil wizards.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I'll work on it. Oh my God, we will. That has to happen now. Jeez. Because they're not going to have any different view on Harry than the White Council does. I mean, as far as they're concerned. But go ahead.
So we all remember the first Dresden Files television show, and I'm wondering.
I like the way you phrased that. The first Dresden Files television. Positive.
Yes, exactly.
Positive energy.
So, putting out positive energy. Do you think that there's a possibility of a better version of that coming somewhere?
I'm gonna be conservative and say I think there's a possibility of another version of the show coming. I hesitate to say better because God knows it's Hollywood. I mean I have the rights back now. The rights are out with a major production company. I'm not allowed to say who. When I'm not being filmed, I'll give hints, but I'm not allowed to say who. But we'll see. It's Hollywood. The way things work in Hollywood is that nothing happens, everything happens at once. But you can never, even if plans get made and things get lined up and people start naming names and talking about people, it's still nothing's certain until the check is cleared. So we'll see what happens in the future. I know that if something else does happen, that I'm going to want to be on board as a consultant, if only to be able to say, hey, let me help. Let me help within the constraints that you have, make this as cool and as fan friendly as possible. Which is not something that I can necessarily be really good at helping on, but I at least want to know that I did my best to try. Before, it was like I had no contractual authority, I had no ability to input whatsoever other than just force of personality, which does not get very much done. But if I'm on board and have like a paid position that I can say, hey, I'm the consultant and let's work on this together and let me give you some good ideas and so on, that hopefully I can add some more energy to it that will function in a positive way. And we'll see. If nothing else, Priscilla Spencer is going, charging gangbusters ahead on her filmmaking career, and I'm pretty sure she's going to want to do Dresden Files, and once she gets established, eventually anyway. So we'll see what she wants to do with it. God knows she does most of my fact checking as it is already. So Priscilla, how old was Morgan in 1886? -3. Okay, well I can't use him in this story. Thank you. That's kind of what I wind up doing. So.
Right, Jim, you have 10 minutes.
10 minutes left? Okay, and we're all out of questions? Oh, man, you're going to make me work for it. Okay.
You've kind of introduced the Venetori and that side of, and the thought process about gods and powerful beings going kind of extinct if they're not known. Is there any chance we're going to see more of that kind of side? I know Harry can't kind of be involved from what was written.
Oh, the gods haven't gone extinct. They're just doing other stuff that clears a better profit than being gods, because that's a pain. You've got to listen to worshipers all the time. You've got to answer prayers, make appearances. There's PR to think about. You can't hire other people to do it for you. It's not at all like being a rock star. Where you can hire other people to do that stuff for you, and you can always be on the road, and people scream and worship you and throw their daughters at you and all kinds of things like that. Sports stars, wrestlers. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, we still got the professional wrestling episode to go, so.
Hello again. I know you can't give a very specific answer about this, but when or if will we ever see what's inside Harry's soul that terrifies basically everyone whom he meets whenever he soul gazes somebody?
I don't know. Can you see inside your own? How do you get the measure of your own soul except by looking at what's around you? And yeah, other people do flip out when they see him, but also look at the world around Harry and the people in his life. What does that reflection say about him? Harry's surrounded by people who used to be victims and are now out protecting people. He's surrounded by folks who at some point in their life were scared and horrified and didn't know what to do, and who are now knowledgeable and working together and generally doing more positive things with their life, because hopefully as a result of what he's been doing in some ways, or they're dead. Some of them died bravely, some not so much, and but how can you tell what's the state of your own soul? I guess excessive navel gazing can probably reveal something. I don't know. I don't trust that though. People are very good at lying, especially to themselves.
Thank you.
Much simpler question. What's your favorite line from each of your 3 series?
From the Dresden Files, my favorite line is, "The building was on fire and it wasn't my fault." That's been my strongest opening. I'm very proud of that craft-wise. Running along through a burning building carrying a box of puppies with flying demon monkeys throwing burning poo at him. That's Harry Dresden, ladies and gentlemen. From Alera, I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. I don't know. probably some dialogue from the side characters. I enjoy that stuff, you know. Look at Mandos. He knows how to go out with style. He wants style. I'll strangle you with your best silk shirt, you know, like that. Let's see, from the Cinder Spires, it's I need you to move. I need you to move any problems out of the. I need you to, if there are any problems, I need you to go over, around, under, or through them. And I'm not sure I know how to do that. I'm not sure you know how to do anything else. You know, that's my favorite bit from that so far. Either that or some of the cat dialogue, because cats are. Well, they're so easy. They're so easy to have to steal scenes with. You know, Raoul lecturing Bridget about climbing a rope while he's riding on her shoulders all the way up. You know, Raoul checks in at 30 pounds, so you know, him bitching at Bridget about climbing ropes. It's perfectly simple how you climb a rope. You just climb it, you know, like that. But cats get to be jerks and get away with it because they're adorable.
So I'd heard you'd written a short story for Larry Correia's Monster Hunter anthology.
Yes,
what
I
was
did.
it like writing in another universe, not with your own?
Tremendous fun. I wrote a short story about the janitors at Monster Hunter International headquarters in Cazador. And so there's all these epic monster huntery battle Cthulhu gods and stuff, people, you know, werewolves and Frankenstein monsters and whatnot around. I mean, all these huge, iconic, epic folks. And I wrote about the janitor. So I like to think of it as the Xander episode of Monster Hunter International. But it's great. I mean, there's little. It's called Small Problems. And I had a tremendous amount of fun writing it. It's one of the better short stories I've written, I think. So I enjoyed it a lot, and Larry got plenty of giggles out of it, and I got to have lots of lots of the stars of Avengers come in and make cameos in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You know, and that was the story that I was doing.
So I have trouble maintaining continuity in a 1,000-word short story. When you're 10 or 15 books in, do you find yourself going, oh crap, I should have done something differently 4 books ago, and how do you deal with that?
When you should have done something differently 4 books ago and you need to change it, you get creative, because you can't change it because the readers already have it. It's already in the reader's head, and the readers only get the one story. And having continuity issues as a writer is understandable, because as a writer, you write something, you write another draft, you get somebody to read it, write some more, an editor sees it, and then you write it again, and then a copy editor, and you write it again, and then here comes the final draft, and you go through that. And so by the time you're done with the book, by the time I'm done with the book, I've got about 7 or 8 slightly different versions of the same book in my head. And not only that, but then that gets conflated with all the versions of the book that I could have written and didn't, because I made different choices for whatever reason that I was telling the story. For example, in the Dresden Files, in Changes, Harry could have gone one of 3 ways. He could have gone Dark Hallow, he could have gone Agent of Mab, or he could have gone Lashiel's Coin. And it would have changed the story dramatically depending on which way he went. And I wasn't sure which one he was going to choose until he got there. So in my head, the Dresden Files is like this cloud of parallel realities that are going along, which is why it's going to be really easy to write Mirror Mirror, because I already have all these parallel realities in my head anyway. And this is just going to be one of them. That is one choice different than the Dresden File, than the mainline Dresden Files. Which I always love doing, changing one little thing and following the chain of consequence of that choice. It's great fun if you're into that sort of thing. Train of thought derailed. Sorry. Oh, continuity. I employ beta readers that help me a lot. And a couple of the beta readers I have tremendous brains for continuity. I mean, unreal, Hermione level brains for continuity that you just look at them and go, freak. But also, and then the wider fan community has helped me now because, for example, the Dresden Files role-playing game has now provided me with a reference that I can go look at when I need to know information that I've forgotten. Or I can like, how many kids do the Carpenters have again? God, I can't remember. There's so many of them. Let me go look up the Dresden Files wiki.
Yeah.
And oh, okay, here they are in their relative ages. Awesome. Okay, now I know it again. So I cheat a lot. Is how you do it. But if you're not fortunate enough to be able to cheat a lot or to have access to people with freakish brains, then you've got to take copious notes, which I also have. And you've got to be able to reference them and to some degree go, oh, I remember this. So there you go. That's how you handle continuity. Are we up yet? Is time up? Am I done?
Yes.
Oh, thank God. Okay. Thank you everyone for putting up with me.